I'm here because I have questions. I have a lot of questions. Starting, who am I? What do I like? What don't I like? What makes me happy? What makes me sad? What gives me energy? What wears me out? What are my limits? What don't I know about myself that could really be holding me back? When I was young, questions were so much simpler. This is an example, not an actual chart from my childhood, but one that my parents made to help me answer questions like, did I make my bed today? Did I clean the dishes? And of course, I cleaned the dishes. This is me and my sister. But as I get older, 42 now, and the questions just keep coming, and they get harder, and they keep coming faster. So this is difficult. I feel like I have answers sometimes, but sometimes I'm wrong. I hate to admit that, but it's true. It reminds me of a quote that I really like and I heard recently in an interview. Expectations are disappointments in training. That's fantastic. But why are expectations so disappointing? Maybe if you read Great Expectations, it'll make sense. That's definitely one case. But I think the problem is, if you unpack it a little bit, expectations are really predictions, right? I mean, let's try that. Predictions are disappointments in training? Anyone disagree with that? I'm going to go and make a bet that we'll all think that at some point in the future. Why are predictions problematic? Well, they're forecasts from our available knowledge about what's going to happen. But sometimes our available knowledge isn't so good, right? We have all kinds of built-in biases, as we saw this morning. Confirmation bias, my side bias. Then even before the biases of the data that we've gotten to us, there are filters that edit the data before we can even access it. So there are all kinds of problems. And as an engineer, this is perfect. I love problems. So I thought I would build a tool called PACO to look at this problem. It started out as a simple prototype for myself to look at my daily experience and try and figure out some of the answers to these crazy questions of who I am. But then over time, it's sort of modified and become a research platform that anyone can use now to build experiments to study daily experience. Before I show it to you, because I've got a bunch of demos, you may be wondering why it's called PACO. And I kind of tipped my hand there. That's PACO. You notice he looks a lot like the logo. It was very hard to breed a dog that looked like a logo. But we figured it out. Hard problems, that's what we like. Anyway, so he's the inspiration for particular properties that he embodies. He was very intuitive about my feelings and my wife's feelings. He would know when we were sad and he would come and nuzzle up to us and try to comfort us. When we put on our running shoes, he would remind us of our higher goals, that we should really take our dog for a walk. Very smart dog, probably the smartest dog that ever lived. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that. So anyway, it's named after him. That's still the inspiration and the vision, even though today it's really a tool that's a little more practical, simple, but we're iterating it to do these more exciting things over time. So now showing you some demos. I've got 3 demos that I want to go into because each one of them kind of gives you a different flavor for what you can do to study your own daily experience with the tool. But the best way to do this is to actually give you the experience. Sorry, I think I hit my microphone. So as I was coming here, I was really excited, like ideas worth spreading, right? Like I'm an idea person. I wanted to absorb as many of the ideas as I could, and I was afraid that in the fleeting moments of conversation and then off to another session, I would miss some things. So I thought I would build a tracker because I knew that I wouldn't write down notes every time I talked to somebody. So I thought I'd build a tracker to find out, sort of sample me and say, hey, did you learn anything interesting? So this is the experience of participating in that tracker. And it's going to be a little weird because you're not supposed to expect a random signal. So just act naturally. Hey, that's my signal on my PACO app telling me that I need to fill out a survey. So I open the app, I look and I see there's a notification that it's time to participate in the TEDx Speaker Experience app. So I click on it, it takes me in, asks me, what are you doing right now? Speaking. Prediction did work this time. It's amazing. And who are you doing it with? Lots of people. Looks like lots of people. I'll go with that. Not some people. And then how do I feel about it? Well, I'm very excited about it. And also it grabbed my location so I can remember where I was. Maybe we roamed all over Claremont and even points further beyond. I can save the response, I'm done. That's it, I'm out. I can put the phone back in my pocket, and I've sampled that data. At some point in the future, I can go back and look at that data and do something with it. But for now, I will remember, and I might not have otherwise, that I spoke at TEDx in Claremont. I would hate to lose that memory. So what this example was supposed to give you was this sort of idea that, I could have gone to the App Store. Actually, I did go to the App Store and the Google Play Store, and I looked for a TEDx speaker experience tracker. There's not an app for that. But with PACO, I was able to create something precisely suited to my needs in just a few minutes, and it works. I don't think there's a whole long tail of experiments. So this next experiment is not so long tail, but it demonstrates something else that I've built into the platform that I think is really useful. It's the experiential sampling technique. It was in the TEDx speaker talk, but in this one it takes more of a role that's been validated by research. So back in November of last year, we were trying to ship new versions of projects, and I was noticing I wasn't getting anything done. My productivity was through the floor, like working in molasses, and you can't code when you're covered in molasses. So anyway, I thought I'd sample my daily work experience, find out what I was actually doing. So I built this tracker called the Snippets work tracker. It was very simple. It only asked me one question. I kind of expanded them all here so you can see it. But it would just ping me 3 times a day randomly during work hours and say, have you been working in the last hour? If I said no, that was it, done. I can go back to not working. If I was working, then it could keep distracting me. It would say, what was your primary activity? And then what was your secondary activity? I would enter those and I'd be done. So pretty non-invasive, took a minute to build, 10 seconds to reply. After about a week, I looked at the data and I was stunned to see that like 50% of the responses in PACO were email. I don't know if anyone else has problems with managing their email. So I thought, okay, I've discovered a problem here in my work behavior. Why don't I try an intervention? And one of the things you hear all the time at work is, well, check your email twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. So I did that, and after the next 2 weeks of running this, lo and behold, like email was hardly present in the data, and there were all kinds of other work tasks that I had on my list of objectives, and they were getting done, and I felt like I was getting things done. So this is not rigorous scientific, but it worked. I created an intervention of a problem that I saw in the PACO data, and then I saw a change in the PACO data that correlated with my own subjective experience. That's pretty awesome to me. This is not so awesome. This is my data for the last month with the same snippet tracker. Now, we've built other trackers that were much more involved for studying work engagement and experience, but they're more onerous to fill out, and so you don't spend as much. The response rate drops off because it's just too much work and you want to get back to what you're doing. So this one's very lightweight, so I've been running it for a month, the last month, and do you notice this pernicious element that's highlighted based on its frequency? Email has snuck back in and taken over my life. Anyway, so this next experiment is the one that brought me here today. It was one we did early on, but it completely stunned me. And it stunned me because in hindsight, it was so obvious that I couldn't believe it. This experiment was called Food Rules. Michael Pollan, I don't know if you know the food author, he was coming to give a talk about his new book, Food Rules. And he has this really clever little haiku about how you should eat. Eat food, mostly plants, not too much. Well, that's pretty easy to follow. We ought to be able to build an experiment for that people would adhere to. And we can see, can you adhere to it? And does it have an effect on your life? So we built this little experiment, and we thought we'd show it to him when he finally showed up. It's 3 simple questions. Looks like this. And we all went to lunch together as a team who were working on it. Do you like the phrasing? Is that, so yeah, it created some puzzles, and this isn't actually the real experiment. The last item, the was it not too much, was kind of spelled out with a list of 3 items, which was no, not too much, no, just about right, yes, too much. Because the cognitive load of answering a question can ruin your response rate of your experiment. Just a little tip for the behavioral scientists out there. But anyway, so we ran this, and all of our team used it. We'd go to lunch, and it would ping us at 1:30 in the afternoon, ask these 3 little questions. You'd be like, yeah, no, yeah, and then you're done. After about 3 weeks, I wasn't even paying attention that I was participating anymore. And my colleague yells out to me, hey, look at your plate, it's all plants. And I look down, sure enough it was. I'm like, look at your plate, it is too. But he's like, did you do that on purpose? He's like, because I've been watching you for a couple of days to see if you were going to keep it up, and you are. And I was like, no, I wasn't even paying attention. And it just blew me away. I wasn't really trying, I don't even know that these are good ideas. It's a cute haiku, and I love haiku, but really, is this a good way to plan your life and nutrition? But it works. My behavior changed just by this simple little act of recording what I did with 3 little yes-no questions every day, raised my awareness, and my behavior automatically changed. Wow. I couldn't believe it. So I did some research, I looked into it, and then realized the obvious that, yeah, like awareness is like the biggest change agent there is if you want to change something. Try Googling awareness is the first step too. Should have seen that one coming. Anyway, so this really just blew me away that raising awareness causes change. Because the PACO tool is just a platform for building these little things that interrupt you. They raise your awareness, right? For good or for bad, so use them for good. But raising awareness can do so much. It's not high tech, it's a simple little experiment. You create it in a minute that takes a minute to fill out, but it changes the way you think, which changes the way you act. For me, that was just huge. So I want to say one other thing about the platform while I'm here, because I think you could look at this tool where I'm creating something to interrupt people and think, oh my God, human subjects protections, call them on this guy. This is unethical, this is horrible. You're hurting people by interrupting their lives. Well, no, first off, other experimenters create the experiments, but no. Really, like, it's pretty minimally invasive, but I think there's some key things that I did try to address that you probably should care about, and I want to mention them because I want to change your mind about these, so I'm going to raise your awareness. Privacy. I think we live in a privacy bubble right now where we exchange our personal information for goods and services with an implicit contract. So we don't know what we're getting and we don't know how that's all being used. But anyway, this is another TED Talk. But just trust me, PACO data, it's designed that you keep your data private. If you participate in a research experiment, before you can join, you've got to know that you're sharing it with the researcher. But otherwise, it's all private. That's very important. And I think we'll see that even more and more in our lives as technology becomes more commonplace. The second thing was, each one of these little apps, they could have been built as apps in the App Store, right? I could have the TEDx tracker, my Snippet tracker, my food tracker, you name it. Then little bits of my life are spread out across data silos all over the cloud. How do I pull all that back together and manage it? Maybe I want to delete it all because I'm just so embarrassed. Maybe I want to mash it up and see, well, how does my mood correlate with my weight? How does that correlate with my exercise? You know, and my work productivity, and my friendliness to my mom. I don't know, like that's the trick, right? It's exploratory. But if the data is spread out and you can't get it all into one place to massage it, you can't find out these other important things. The last one in that area is that I think is really important. I'm a programmer, so I can whip up a program to do this stuff, no problem. And that's how it started. The reason that it changed is because non-programmers, behavioral scientists, and just individuals who were curious about their lives came to me and said, hey, you know, you were talking about this, and these questions I have are really interesting. Can I plug those in? And at first it was like, well, okay, I'll write you a program, but I got inundated. So the third thing we did was we built it so that non-programmers can create experiments without a lot of work. And the hope is there, like it covers the minimal bases, but if you need to get really crazy, you can do that too. One of the exciting things about PACO that's kind of just bubbling out these days that I want to share with you. Like, I don't know how many people are computer scientists or programmers in the room? All right, so you 6 guys and gals, you know, just sort of ignore this part. You're going to be like, he's dumbing it down. This is no good. And the other rest of you are going to be like, I don't understand what you're talking about, but I'm going to try anyway. So if you think about like computer programming, what we're trying to do is we're trying to marshal out of the chaos of all possible programs in the world something that does something that humans are interested in. Humans are very interested in psychology and behavior, and so we take those ideas of behaviors and we turn them into memory addresses and subroutines and programs and processes and clouds. Well, every time you translate from one domain to the other, you lose a lot of information. So we've been doing this enough times that we've started to realize some commonalities, like, hey, when you talk about behavior change, there's this notion of like a goal or a theory of eating that would be a diet plan, like say, I want to compare this diabetic diet to this diabetic diet. and execute them. And so you start to realize there's things like goals and theories, and then how do I measure goals and create interventions and behavior trackers? Well, there's signs that you use to measure if you're achieving your goals or not, right? Those could be inputs to the algorithm. So when you think about how am I going to measure if I'm tracking this goal with a little tracker, well, I need inputs that I can collect, and then I can test them against what it would look like if those inputs were in the goal state. Like, oh, weight is this, that's the goal state, great. Then you can give them feedback based on, you've achieved your goals, congratulations, or hey, put down the chocolate pretzels. So this is a language that we've kind of been culling. So if the UI for automatically programming doesn't help you out, you can get a programmer, not even a rocket scientist, and have them build based on this language much more nuanced and complex behavior change. So that is really exciting to me, and we're just sort of embarking on that, but we've learned so much about how to build languages. So okay, you computer science guys can come back now. So it's not just been useful for individuals, it's been very exciting for researchers and corporations and governments and universities. I've gotten, by building this project, kind of traveled all over and collaborated with these people, and there are a lot of exciting projects going on. Some of the ones that are highlights that I'm really excited about is working with NIH through some of their organizations. We're working on some studies to help addicts break their behaviors and patterns of addiction. Another one we're getting ready to start is working with underprivileged high school students in science, technology, engineering, and math classes, studying their engagement and trying to figure out how to make sure that those classes serve them so that we can get all the engineers and scientists and doctors we need to support our country. And then the third one that's exciting is working on figuring out how to help people in urban environments get access to health resources so that they can have healthier lives, because often urban environments are not so healthy. But anyway, as another inspirational part of this, I wanted to run through just a couple of experiments that other people have created that I think are really interesting. Like Sit Up Straight is an example of a logger that helps you try to train your willpower based on Roy Baumeister's book, Willpower. And basically you pre-test yourself by putting your hand in ice water, holding it there. Then you run a study for a week where you ask yourself to sit up straight, and you just pay attention to sitting up straight, and that improves your willpower, and you can hold your hand under ice water longer, which everyone needs, right? So that's an example that I think is really exciting, which is every self-help book in the world, which that's more of a research pop sci book, but every self-help book should come with an experiment that you could execute to figure out if this theory works for you or not. Same thing with medical journal articles, right? Like this week, JAMA says that eating walnuts before lunch will curb your appetite. Next week, it's eat another lunch before lunch to curb your appetite. Like, how am I gonna test which ones work for me? So anyway, that's what I came here to present to you. I'm really excited about the possibility of tools to raise awareness, and all of the ways we've heard today about being more aware. I'm excited to put them in PACO. And I hope that it will help people's lives by bringing all these tools to bear that they can use to raise awareness in their own lives and solve their questions. And I hope that because of enlightened and more knowledgeable individuals, the world will benefit. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you get your questions answered.